In this video I'm going to show you how the basic frame of BeamCase SFF is assembled. BeamCase is a case system based on these Makerbeam XL profiles. They are 15 by 15 millimeters, made of aluminium. And together with these 3D printed brackets, they make cases of variable sizes, and they can customize them to your needs in terms of size and length. So today I'm going to show you how this 2-slot ITX version is assembled. This is version 4. There are going to be changes made to this in the future, but this is the current status. This is the 2-slot version, but there's also a 3-slot version, and I also designed an ATX version, which is split into 2 parts, so it can be printed on medium-sized printers, like Bamboo Labs P1S. Yeah, so the case consists of 3D printed brackets and these aluminium profiles. This is a 150 millimeter long one. So to build the basic frame, we need this back panel here, which is to connect the I/O. We need the rear mainboard beam, the front mainboard beam, and then we also need a front brace. You'll see in the video where this comes in. And then, depending on how you want to assemble it, you also need you also need this SFX PSU mount that can be mounted quite flexibly in different positions in the frame. And then, depending on how the case is assembled, we either need this 3D printed beam replacement that goes in place of this. So you can either buy a 150 millimeter beam and the corner cubes, but the 150 millimeter beams only come in a pack of 4, and the corner cubes only come in a pack of 12, and we only need 2 in this case in one beam. So it's kind of a waste of money. So we can also use this 3D printed beam replacement instead. It doesn't have, the aluminium one has obviously slots for nuts on all 4 sides. The 3D printed version has only slots on one side for strength reasons and for printing reasons, so it's still easy to print. But I'm gonna not use this replacement today. I'm just gonna use the straight up aluminium profile with the corner cubes because I have them anyway. But if you want to save on cost, you can just 3D print this beam, and it does most of the things that this one does. It is not as strong though, but it's still strong enough. Then we'll need this frame, and then we also need some spacers for screws, and then this is a little helper that helps you align the beams for the motherboard so the distances are correct. And that's basically it in terms of 3D printed pieces to assemble the frame. We don't need more for the basic frame. So I'm going to put that to the side again, and then for the aluminium maker beams we need 2 200 millimeter long ones, Makerbeam XL. In color you can choose whatever you want. These are quite rough shape because I use them a lot already. So 200 millimeter ones minimum. And then for the length of the case you can basically choose whatever length you want. Minimum is 200 millimeters though, so the ITX motherboard fits, but these ones are 300 millimeters, which is the perfect length for my GPU, which is 30 series tough card. As you can see, it just will fit perfectly within that frame, but obviously other cards are longer, and so you can basically buy whatever length you need. There are only certain lengths that are sold with a certain length, so there are only 100, 200, 150 and 300, so you can either cut them to length yourself or order custom lengths. These are 360 millimeters for example, but it just depends on how long you want your case. I'm going to use just simple 300 millimeter ones today that will probably fit most medium-sized GPUs, or 40 series some are too big for this. So that's the aluminum profiles we need. In terms of screws, this case requires, the basic frame requires 8mm countersunk M3 screws. So I use Torx, but any head type will basically work. Hex will also work. I wouldn't use like cross-headed ones. I would use either hex or Torx because those work most reliable. These are stainless steel, but it doesn't really matter what material. And then the second type of screw we need is same type, but just 16mm long ones. Yeah, doesn't focus. We don't need many of these. We need quite a few of these 8mm ones because a lot of them are used in the case. Yeah, so here the 16 and here the 8mm ones. So that's just the reference how they look. I use stainless Torx ones, but it doesn't really matter what kind they are. And then we also need a lot of M3 nuts, just standard M3 nuts. Nothing special here. These are stainless ones, but as again, doesn't matter what kind they are. Yeah, and we'll need a lot of those. So, and we also need a lot of the 8mm ones and a lot of the 60mm ones. They're more in this box here, but for this case assembly we also only need those. And then to mount the power supplies, we need these quite specific, at least in Europe they can be difficult to get. These are 632 UNC thread, so that's the thread the power supplies use, SFX and ATX, and this 3D printed bracket design is designed in a way that's quite thick, so we need quite long of these screws. These are approximately 10.5mm long, but it's not really that important. They don't have to be this exact length. The power supplies normally have a bit of like space in them so if they are 12 long or something like that, doesn't really matter. But they can be difficult to get in this length. I just buy them in a set with various lengths on Amazon. So I just got this one for 10 euros, I think, or something like that, or 12. And then which is very practical. But yeah, these can be difficult to get. I'm planning on changing the design of this bracket, so standard length screws can fit. But this is regardless of if they are shorter, they are not as strong, because this way they go through all the layers, and it's the strongest possible bracket. And then here around to fix them, they're just, on the other side you can see, these are just 60mm M3 screws and nuts already in the back for mounting. Yeah, but it's just the basic parts we need. So all of these parts are straight off the 3D printer, not prepped yet, and we need to insert M3 nuts in specific areas. So we can mount things. Most of those are in correspondence with the components. So in order to mount the graphics card with screws, we have to insert M3 nuts here at the back. It's very simple. Just grab some. I use these Kniepex pliers for that, but it really doesn't matter. They make it nice and easy though. So you can already press them in a little bit, and then just take the pliers and press them in all the way. And we have to do that in various places. Another place is here in the lower part below the I/O shield. So, and then there are also these, but they're optional. You don't have to put any here or here. It's not necessary for the basic configuration. So it's already done with these. And then we have to do the same here on the motherboard beams. So these are like this, and just to make sure that they're all the way in. I'm going to take a screw it in partially, and then press it in the last step, which they go a bit in a bit deeper. So once that is done, it's basically all the inserting of M3 nuts you have to do. Then the next step, you're just gonna take these 3 printed spacers and put them on the 16mm countersunk M3 screws fully. These spacers just act as spacers, so the screw isn't too long when put on when we mount the motherboard with it. This avoids just that you need another screw length, so you only need 8 and 16mm for the whole build. So we have to do this for all 4 of them. Next step, we're just gonna pre-attach all the 8mm countersunk M3 screws and nuts to these beams, so it's easier to attach them this way. So we got them. Can slide these onto 2 beams, so that's why we only like half thread them on, and you can just, something a bit tricky to get the nuts in, but it's actually very loose, so I'm just going to tighten them up a little bit. And you just slide it on there. Same goes for this one. So on this one we have to position, so this end here lines up with the beam. They should be both on the same height, like that. Let me just do that. You can always adjust it later if fitment isn't perfect. Mount those on this one. I'm just quickly gonna take this one and use it to align the bottom one. Make sure that they're the correct distance apart. So now we can slide the top one. So we again have to align it so this ends with the end of the beam like this. So this is kind of one side of the frame now fixed in place. And now we can continue with mounting the back panel. And you can see these tabs that slot into indentations of on the bottom of the back panel. This gives it more rigidity. It's not super important in the 2-slot version, but the larger it gets, the more important it is. So we can simply start by immediately screwing back panel to the ends of the Makerbeam XL profiles. Now in order to add strength to the whole system, we have these tabs that connect the rear frame to the I/O bracket. And these just take the same 8mm nuts we have been using the whole time. Screws, 8mm screws. And with that, the rear half of the case is already assembled. And if you want to mount the motherboard, you could already do it like this. I mean, there's a little bit of flex in here, but it's still strong enough if you want to test your system like this. And you would just screw the motherboard. Use these screws with the standoff to mount the motherboard in place like this. But I wouldn't do that before the case is complete. So in order to finish up the rest, so the next step is to mount this bottom brace. It goes like this, and it's carved out here to make space for the GPU, so we allow basically the full length of the chassis to be utilized. And we're using to mount it, we're using the same 8mm countersunk M3 screws. And then we can mount the third beam here. Now this is the SFX PSU bracket. These 4 screws are the ones utilized to mount the SFX PSU, and these remaining 5 are used to mount it to the frame. Now this bracket can be mounted in many different orientations, so we can either mount it like this, or we can flip it and mount it like this, or we can mount it like this. And theoretically, depends on how long your SFX power supply is. Can also mount it on the other side. There are many ways to mount this bracket, and it really depends on how you want to arrange your components. You can also do it like this. Like the classic way for most SFX systems is to mount it like this. SFF systems to mount it like this. But actually, for this configuration, which I'm going to put here, it is better if I mount it like this, and the power supply will suck in air from the top and it will be mounted horizontally. That means I can still mount a fan beneath here, but it's totally flexible where to put it, and the only thing that has to be then considered is what internal extension to get, because that the angle will change depending how you mount it. But so this is much easier to mount this when the frame is not complete yet, because then you can just slide it in. Slide this is a 200mm beam. I'm just gonna slide this 200mm vertical beam in there. These screws are quite on the edge in terms of the length, so they really have to be in the right position for this to work. Just slide it down. I'll not fully tighten it, but I'll make it a little bit tighter, so it doesn't, there's no risk of it moving around too much. And you can use the same 8mm screw. So, and then we can, in this place we can either utilize this combination of a 150mm profile with corner cubes, or if you don't want to spend money on this, we can also utilize this 3D printed version that would go in the same place like this. Would go same place. It's a bit weaker, but it's still strong enough. But since I have the metal corner cubes and the metal parts anyway, I'm gonna use them like this. And for those also the same countersunk can be used. They're not ideal, but they can be used as well. So these will also fit in here. But some flathead ones, like these, or like these hex versions, will work better. And now we can mount the last 300mm profile to the frame. So that's already the basic frame. Now we could already mount GPU, power supply and all that. So yeah, this is with the combination with a way to mount the SFX PSU power supply, and that to mount that we would simply use these long screws, which are not Torx, they're just normal type crosshead bolts screws, and we would mount it from the outside. I mean, screw it in from the outside, but we would mount it here on the inside, and then the PSU extension can either be routed here, or there's this small gap here that's made for cable, so cable can be routed out there, and then mounted here. At the back is a space for extensions. So in this version, This version is made to use simple extensions like these. Not the screw-in type, but there's also a version for the screw-in type extensions. But this one will just slot in like this. It's quite tight, but it's slot in. And then like that. It's kind of flexible how you position it, but it's in like this. And then you can use one of the 16mm screws to tighten this clamp down here. That's the space for a screw, something like this. And it will thread itself into the plastic, and then you can tighten it down. And it doesn't need much tightening to be completely secure. Yeah, that's already enough, and it's super secure in there. As you can see, there's no way it's gonna get out of there. And this is actually a wrong extension for this power supply position. Depending on where you mount it, you need different kind of extensions. I'll go into that in another video. But yeah, so this is how you would mount this type of PXU extension. And here at the back we also have holes for a 120mm fan, which is are these four, and a full ATX power supply will also fit in this position. I can demonstrate that. So here you can see a full ATX power supply, and this can also fit here without a problem. Your CPU cooler clearance will obviously be minimized then. Yep. So that's the basic case. Now, if you want to mount the motherboard, then you could simply put it in here and then utilize these screws to secure it in place. Oh. Yeah, like this. The spacers. And that's it that's how you create a basic frame with the BeamCase system. Now, as I said, this is just a 2-slot version. It's 234mm tall in this direction, it's 180mm wide, and it's 330mm long. With that, it's just under 15 liters as far as I remember. No, it's just under 14 liters. Yeah. And part of the system are all sorts of accessories, for example, case feet. And you can put these on kind of any side you want, front, bottom, so you can put a showcase like this, theoretically even like this, but and then there are all sorts of accessories. There are also fan mounts like this, and these work simply by, this version of fan mount works simply by putting them in, and then it's going to be secured with 2 screws here. So they can simply be slotted in, and then you can even slot in. You can even slot in another one, like this. To be careful with the connectors. Yeah. And then you would have some nuts here in the profile to screw them down, also with the 8mm screws. Once it's, yeah, like this. And you can just simply take them out. And they're all kinds of brackets. There's also an external ATX power supply bracket, We have cross beams for strengthening the rigidity of the case. Corner brackets for strengthening it here. There are also one-sided fan mounts which are going in from the inside like this. So you can mount it here, or for example here under the power supply. You just add more nut profiles in here and then you can mount it here. And that is, there are more brackets as well. There are also brackets to support the ends of GPUs here. And also I/O brackets. So this is a on-off button, USB 3 obviously, and you can also screw that simply either to the frame, either here or basically wherever you want and wherever you have space. You could even put it here on the left side. Really the options are endless, and also post videos about how to make these soon. Yeah, and that's it. That's the BeamCase SFF. This is the ITX 2-slot version. As I said, also have a full ATX version. There's also a 3-slot ITX version, and soon I'll be working on a complete micro ATX version as well, but those are a bit tricky. Yeah, but that's it for this basic assembly video of the BeamCase SFF frame. If you have any thoughts or any questions, you can just post them in the comments.